Right, thank you for clicking on the video. This is Gull Payne back with a new series on the Gull Payne channel, and this is going to be Resident Evil Relaxation. So as the name suggests, I'm just going to talk about Resident Evil and relax. So I've got Resident Evil 1 DualShock version here for the PlayStation 1, so I'm just going to play this and just talk about Resident Evil. So let me know what you think of this sort of video in the comment section below. If you've got any thoughts on Resident Evil, let me know, or Resident Evil 1. If there's anything you want to see in the future as well, appreciate it. Any feedback is always appreciated. Right, so Resident Evil 1 for the PlayStation 1, the DualShock version. So I didn't actually play this game when it first came out at all. I played Resident Evil 2 first, and then I played Resident Evil 3, and then I think I went back and played Resident Evil 1, but I didn't actually play it when it came out, so I wasn't horrified or I wasn't blown away by the amazingness of it. One thing that did strike me, I'll always remember when I was a kid, was I was quite used to playing RPGs and kind of platformers like Mario, Sonic, or like RPGs like Final Fantasy 7 with like Squall and Leona, Tifa, Barrett. All the characters had these like kind of really like not foreign but really kind of fantastic or kind of fantasy kind of names. Even with like Mario Brothers, Mario, Luigi, it wasn't the norm. Although I did know someone named Mario, but it wasn't the norm. And then I'll always remember with Resident Evil, it was like Chris, Jill, Leon, Claire. I was like, why have they got all like normal names like Albert, Barry? All the names are really normal. That doesn't make sense for like a fantasy adventure. But it kind of, you couldn't really look at Chris Redfield now and say that's not Chris or that's not Jill. So I don't know. I was just used to all of the, I suppose, as a byproduct of playing like RPGs like Suikoden and Final Fantasy, where all the characters' names they're not normal names like. So that was just a funny kind of a thing I thought about the other day while playing this. So the first game here, I've never completed Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut actually. I've completed Resident Evil 1 Remake. I played this, it was okay. I kind of got to the lab area where you have to mix all of the chemicals and stuff, but I never actually finished it. I was sort of playing Resident Evil 1 on and off. I was too busy trying to speedrun Resident Evil 2 in under 3 hours to get Hunk and Tofu, etc. Original Resident Evil 2, not the remake. I'm currently trying to speedrun Resident Evil Remake, but it's quite difficult when you're trying to do it in under 2 hours. I'm not a professional speedrunner like so. Yeah, basically Resident Evil, this iconic image here, I'm finding it difficult to control here as well because I haven't actually used tank controls in so long because I'm so used to the remakes in Resident Evil that I'm actually finding it difficult even to control Jill here. So this is the iconic zombie, and I always, one of the kind of, when I went back and played this recently as well, one of the differences I kind of saw was I was so used to the Resident Evil 1 remake map. That window there in the top left, there is there's actually a stairs there in Resident Evil 1 Remake, and there's a kind of a place to go outside as well in the remake where you have to get the thing off the dog. But a lot of the things are the same with this game and the remake, but the remake is so superior. You'd be wondering why anyone would go back and play this, but considering the remake, for enjoyment. I see a lot of speedrunners, they can speedrun this in like 41 minutes, under an hour easily, like with a lot of with Jill. I think Chris's takes a bit longer, but I enjoyed Jill's story in this. Although Chris and Jill are okay. The last time I played Resident Evil Remake, I played as Chris because I'm always playing as Jill, just because of the the old Resident Evil 3. She's in Resident Evil 3 as well. So I never really had a chance, or I never really had a reason to come back and sort of appreciate this game. Plus, every time I watch it, I'm watching someone, like if I watch someone on like Balk with Soup, I really like his videos on Twitter. So if I'm watching him playing it, he's normally like just blasting through it as fast as possible. So it's not really smelling the roses, or not really kind of appreciating the kind of the really nice graphics it has either. So I don't know, when you watch speedruns of games, it's kind of different than going through kind of a story review. So I kind of prefer the story reviews at the time now. But then you're watching the speedrunners and you're like, you could easily, get to the end of this game in a matter of minutes, like. But you're taking your time, so it is a bit strange. But with me, I don't really I couldn't run this game really fast because I just don't know what to do. I did get, when I was playing this a couple of weeks ago, I think now, which is kind of why I originally started, just kind of recording this footage and talking about Resident Evil. I was surprised at how different it was than Resident Evil 1 Remake. You can't go out the back at the top of the stairs there, the first floor of the stairs. And, there's other things as well, that the enemies are different. The hunters are quite similar. The zombies are very different. In this, the zombies look awful, some of them. They just look like, not homeless people, but they don't look like, I don't know, I think they nailed the zombies in Resident Evil 2 and 3, particularly Resident Evil 3, because they sorted out the limbs. The limbs in this look awful. They don't look like limbs, they just look like, connected shapes. Similarly in Resident Evil 2 as well, the hands and the legs, they look like shapes, but in Resident Evil 3 they really corrected the limbs. But just speaking for the graphics in this game, I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me, for the time, the graphics in this game are just on another level. Like, they're absolutely fantastic. Just turn off my sound there. It's coming through the PC for some reason. So the graphics are absolutely fantastic. I know the character models here don't look great by our standards today, but at the time they were fantastic. Even in other games like Final Fantasy VII, the character models were like little children. Like, I know that style has become popular in RPGs, particularly handheld RPGs like on the DS, where like the characters look like little kids. I always remember my mother saying to me when I was younger, when I used to be playing Final Fantasy VII, or Phantasy Star 4 as well, she said they all look like little children, the characters in it, which was funny. So, but the graphics in this, I think, are fantastic. They even still look good today. Obviously not as good as Resident Evil 1 Remake, because that just looks phenomenal, or Resident Evil 0. But for the PlayStation 1, you've got to, like, in comparison to other kind of similar, static background, pre-rendered background games, you've got to say, this is really, really good. Like Final Fantasy 7 or other pre-rendered background games, Legend of Dragoon, those sort of ones, the backgrounds look good, but this, with all the different angles and everything, it just looks amazing. I know I'm going to get beaten by this guy here, but sure, who cares? I always get beaten by this guy. Yeah, there's so many lush environments, like little small little things they didn't need to put in, and they just put them in. It's so entertaining just to look at. And keeping this trend going then in the games after this as well. Just absolutely fantastic. Some of the graphics though obviously haven't aged that well, particularly the zombie models, but that could be forgiven considering they were probably, like, when they were making this game first, they were probably learning it and learn how to do it. Like in Silent Hill, if you go back to Silent Hill 1, the character models in that are just awful. Like this, looking at Jill up close here as well, it's not great. But still, though, for the time, it was excellent. The sound in this is, well, not in the Resident Evil 1 DualShock, Resident Evil 1. What did I call this again? Resident Evil Director's Cut. My apologies. Resident Evil Director's Cut. The sound in this is horrendous. Some of the music in it is awful. It's much better in original Resident Evil. So the story goes, although I'm not 100% sure this is true. So the story goes, Capcom got this really famous composer to compose the music for Resident Evil 1, and apparently he was deaf, and he got quite a lot of fame because of the comparisons to Beethoven, etc. And it turns out his assistant was making most of the music, and he wasn't deaf at all, and there was a whole big, I believe that's a true story anyway. Again, it could be one of those myths, in the 90s when a lot of things were not true, etc. But oh well, who knows. So the music in the original Resident Evil, particularly the save room music, is one of my favourite of this series. I don't like the save room music in Resident Evil 7. I much prefer Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3 save music, or save room music. It's every time it comes on I just feel like relaxed, because you've got the other sort of very panic inducing sound effects. And the save room music is kind of, you're not going to get attacked. Well, you will in Resident Evil 2 Remake, because Mr. X doesn't care about save rooms. Well, Nemesis, there's some save rooms Nemesis doesn't care about either, but in general, he just walks right into them. The ones that are, you're used to sort of being safe in them, and you're not safe in them in Resident Evil 2 Remake. The gameplay in this is quite a step above other games as well. The tank controls, again here I'm having trouble with tank controls, but the tank controls take a lot of getting used to, but at the time they were sort of like, I mean, I never bat an eyelid at the tank controls. The very first time I played Resident Evil 2, I couldn't control it. I got killed by the zombies on the very first screen because I couldn't control couldn't control the character with the tank controls. But if you think about it, it probably was the best system at the time, because even if you go back and play Resident Evil 0 now with the static backgrounds and you play with the regular controls, not tank controls, you still do kind of, run around in a circle a lot. Or when you run onto a screen, you end up running the wrong way on the next screen because of the different angles that they do. But I say the gameplay in this is really good. I believe they took, because again Japan making some subtle differences when they port the games over to USA and Europe and all that. I believe they took out auto aim on one of the releases, I think, to make it harder so that people wouldn't finish the whole game. Because renting was far more popular in Europe and United States as opposed to Japan. So I do remember this jump scare here with the dogs. And I think I actually could have just used the knife there with the dogs, but I'm not skilled enough. I think you can just pretty swipe them and then they'll fall and then swipe them again. I do remember from Resident Evil 1 Remake that there is ammo here under one of these things, but I'm not sure if it's the same here. Oh well. So just a quick note on the characters as well in Resident Evil 1. So you've got Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield. And then you've also they've got characters with them as well. So I really like that mechanic of having two separate characters to pick and then two sort of stories or two sort of routes throughout the game. I think they should do that in a lot more games because, they're just basically recycling assets and recycling backgrounds. And then it's like, it prolongs the game as well. So I'm surprised they don't do that in more games actually, because it's a really good mechanic to have. So Jill Valentine, she's not really that developed in this game. Neither is Chris either. They're both sort of just like, kind of generic military characters. Wesker is a bit developed because he betrays the team and all that. But again, not really. He's just a generic bad guy. Barry is pretty good because he's, quite funny. And the translation of from Japanese to English, or from the subtitled English of the Japanese to the actual English is quite funny as well. And of course, Chris has Rebecca Chambers. But if you have Resident Evil 1 Remake and Resident Evil 0, then original Resident Evil Rebecca Chambers makes no sense at all. She should be able to comfortably defeat the hunters or defeat the zombies. She shouldn't be just staying around mixing medicine. She's well able for the battle. So it does kind of jump the shark a little bit there, or does kind of mess with canon a little bit, or it doesn't really make sense. But I'm assuming that they didn't really, they kind of later change around Rebecca to be a much stronger character, because she's awesome in Resident Evil 0. And then you go back and you see her in Resident Evil 1, you're like, oh my god. But another few things they did as well is you could save different characters. Like you could save Jill, or Chris. Both of them are, depending on which character you pick. Anyone that plays it will know. Particularly in Resident Evil 1 Remake, they're in the jail at the bottom, and you can choose to save them or not choose to save them, and that sort of mechanic, I'm getting mixed up between Resident Evil 0 Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 1 Remake here, so you'll have to forgive me. I've played them kind of close together, and I'm not that familiar with Resident Evil 1 as I am with the other games. But the characters in it, I mean, they're so good. They're sort of the perfect characters for this sort of B-movie scenario. Very, very enjoyable. And they lead into more games as well, which is great, and they're a lot more developed in the subsequent games. The story in Resident Evil 1 is good. It's a B-movie story, which is what I like. I much prefer the stories in Resident Evil than I do in Silent Hill, because in Silent Hill they're more like, I don't know, they're really like, I don't know how to describe it, psychological horror, whereas Resident Evil is much more B-movie, military, zombie film, which is good. Silent Hill is more like ghosts and stuff, so I prefer the grounded in science approach that Resident Evil takes, if that makes any sense. But the story in Resident Evil 1 is that the S.T.A.R.S team, led by Albert Wesker, basically come across a mansion and there's a lot of zombie dogs outside, and they have to take refuge in the mansion. And then they realize then that an outbreak of a virus has taken place by this pharmaceutical company Umbrella, and then they have labs in the basement of the mansion, and then basically it's just trying to get out of the mansion alive then with all of the biohazard weapons around, and then collecting keys, collecting different different weapons and different items and all that, and then to kind of get to know the layout of the mansion, and then to escape. So that sort of trope that Resident Evil has of sort of the main kind of hallway, like as in that Resident Evil 2 has it as well with the police station, the main bit of the police station where you frequently go, and Resident Evil 0 has it as well with the after you get off the train, you're in the main kind of hallway in their mansion as well. So story wise, Resident Evil 1 pretty good. Again, I love the angles. I love the status screen. That was one thing that I was quite disappointed about Resident Evil 1 Remake, is they took away the little faces in the status screen. But what they do, which is really useful, is they show you rooms that you haven't visited yet, which is really handy. In the room you're in now, in the map screen, that's fantastic. I remember being lost in a few games, particularly like even more recently, like Hollow Knight, before you get the little stone that tells you where you are on the map. It's very easy to get lost. But to be honest, I know this area so well, and I'm sure anyone that quite likes Resident Evil 1 Remake. Again, I'm not as knowledgeable about Resident Evil 1 original Resident Evil as I am about the remake. Oh, graphical fidelity here, a bit of graphical issues. The Resident Evil 1 Remake, I pretty much know the layout of the mansion so well, because I'm trying to get my time down to complete the game. But I know the layout of the mansion so well that I even know this mansion here as well. And it's interesting to see some of the rooms, like how less detailed they are here, but they're the same room, obviously. There's one room upstairs actually, which in the remake has like a fire and it has like a picture on the wall. And in this game, it's just like literally, it's just like an empty room, which is really funny to see. It's the level of detail that just wasn't there. So this is a very famous section of the game here as well with Barry, and the old Jill sandwich line comes on later, or around here anyway. Not quite yet, but a little bit later. So I do understand why this is a lot of people's favourite Resident Evil game. I mean, it's the first one, it's kind of set the standard. And the story, however cheesy it is, it's still an entertaining story, I have to say. I do like the story better in Resident Evil 1 Remake, obviously, because that's the one I played like far more with Lisa Trevor. There's a lot more Wesker bits in it as well. They seem to have corrected a lot of things that they made a mistake in Resident Evil 1 as well, but again, I imagine how a lot of people just love this game, the cheesiness and everything about it. They just love it. Personally, other Resident Evil games, I would favour them more than this game, but I still appreciate how good this game is. And just to when this was being developed, like they mustn't have had any idea how successful this series would become. It's interesting actually, even on the front cover of the box of Resident Evil 1, the character on it, I always thought it was Chris, but it's not Chris. And then a lot of people thought it was like Forrest or one of the other characters. It's actually, I think the guy that did the box art basically said that it wasn't anyone. He did the box art before he knew what the game was about, and he just drew like a random soldier, one eye open, one eye kind of closed, or one eye really open, and then like a half shotgun rifle weapon, which is very strange. And there's like spiders. It's a very strange cover if you look at it. Might be interesting to do a kind of a Resident Evil relaxation on the cover, the box covers as well. So that's it for this episode here. Let me know what you think of this format. If you'd like to do a video response to this, just talk about Resident Evil 1 or anything to do with Resident Evil, just let me know in the comment section, and obviously, link me, or not link me, give me a link to your video as well, or direct me in the vicinity of your video. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next Resident Evil Relaxation. Adios.